A few days ago, an article in the Daily Mail came out, and it tackled the controversy of several names that were proposed in the medical field from or by a cervical cancer trust to their physicians who are also treating transgender or non-binary patients. That whole thing ignited a controversy online where people saw the proposed terms as insulting, condescending, misogynist, uh, bodily dissociating or promoting the dissociation from one's body, and people that were promoting those terms not being aware of the power of the words and the effects they can have down the line. So today I want to look at in this entire perspective, how we call the women's genitalia. And I want to look at it from a historical perspective and a multicultural perspective, because I think this is not a new phenomenon. Hi, this is Liana, Holistic Intimacy Coach. Welcome back to my channel. Here, I help you get your orgasmic intimacy. When I saw the article, I read it, and initially I was triggered, and then I cooled it down, I grounded my emotions, and I remembered what I also knew from the personal growth journey. As a woman, I went to women's circles, I did a lot of reading, I had a lot of talks with other women on their personal growth journey. And one thing it is true, and this one you hear it from the Bible, the power of the word. In the beginning was the word. That's how it all begins. In the beginning was the word. The words we use, I'm getting goosebumps right now. The words that we use have power. When we're aware of that power, we can either use it to empower ourselves or take away or reduce, diminish the power from ourselves. So in that sense, let's look at the women genitalia in various cultures throughout time, what it was called, and the meaning, so the power behind it. First of all, let's look at Taoism. This is my favorite tradition to date. Maybe in the future I'll go to Buddhism, I don't know. But for now, this is my favorite tradition of all. And the words that they have for women's genitalia are extremely powerful, potent. The Jade Gate. That's the one that I knew of. Jade is a very powerful material stone, semi-precious stone that is used, and the symbolism behind it is grounding, healing, purging, life honoring, life giving. The Jade Gate essentially means the portal in which life is ignited, nurtured, until it is ready to come out into the world. There is a very sacred intention behind it, powerful, life-honoring again. Let me read to you a few other words that they have in Taoism. I think they're all very powerful expressions. So one of them is Vermilion Gate, another Jade Pavilion, Golden Lotus, Peony Blossom, Receptive Vase. These are very poetic phrases. And one thing that I need to mention here is that when the women genitalia is mentioned or named poetically, there's also a correspondent in poetic names to the male genitalia, because in these traditions, male and female, young male, female, yin, were seen as together. They created life, neither on their own. When it comes to Hinduism, the word that we know is yoni. The meaning of this word is what? Origin, source, abode, womb. It basically is a representation of the divine creative powers. And again, it honors, it is a sacrament to the woman's genitalia, the life that it brings. So both traditions, Taoism and Hinduism, honor the creative force. It is where life comes from. It is sacred. That is the power behind those words. I think we need to honor it. We might not like these expressions. They might not be familiar to us in the Western culture, at least that's where I come from. Because for one, we don't have maybe such a widespread culture of giving poetic names, of honoring, um, showing reverence to sexuality, especially in the West, with a Christian heritage of shaming and dirtying of sexuality, partly because people were of lower consciousness and they did use it in not so exalting ways. That's also true. But the religious or the Christian tradition, what they chose to do to sexuality, didn't make it better. It only made it worse, sadly. So I think we need to acknowledge a little bit of the, let's say, discomfort that we have around using these poetic words and the weirdness of when you use these words in social circles of people that don't go to personal growth or spiritual growth. They're like, what are you talking about? It's kind of lame or pathetic. Some people have that reaction. Not all, but some do. Now let's look at the Western culture and the words. First of all, the one that is widespread and used also in the medical field, and that is vagina. Vagina has a Latin origin. Traditionally, it was not referred to, or originally, the word vagina was never used in the Latin world for a woman's genitalia. It was used for the sheath in which a sword was placed when it was not being used in battle. And colloquially, men did speak about their penis, or their genitalia, in terms of sword. So that's why in colloquial terms, the resting place of the sword was the vagina. So that's why colloquially, probably this name was also used for women's genitalia. You're also going to find this in botany. I'm going to read the definitions here because I don't want to make any mistakes. I'm not necessarily a botanist. So here's the meaning of the word in botany. Covering of an ear of a grain, hull, or husk, a sheath formed round a stem by the base of a leaf. Okay, so it was basically describing what was in nature protecting or covering to protect other parts of a plant, essentially. This one, in my opinion, is neither condescending nor exalting. It's just descriptive. So I think it's neutral. Now, when it comes to still the Western world, let's look at other words that people use for, we're going to talk just the women genitalia. I could probably make another video around male genitalia. But today we're going to look at the controversy, and this is a reaction to the controversy of the women's genitalia. I will read a few words that I found online. I'm not a native English speaker. I obviously didn't know all of these, so some of them were new. In my country, we use different words, obviously. It doesn't matter. It's really irrelevant here because this is the internationally widespread language English. So we're going to look at the English words that are used colloquially. And after I read this list, which is not exhaustive, I think you could probably put a lot of comments with other words. But the point here is for us to look at the energy, the power of the words that are used here and what you think their power is. All right, let's dive here. Pussy, down there, honeypot, fanny, lady bits or lady parts, vag, vajayjay, foof, foo-foo, hoo-hoo, Majingo, Minky, Pink Taco, Panty Hamster, Cunt, Twat, Snatch, Cookie, Muffin, Punani, Beaver, Bearded Clam, Coin Holder, etc., etc. When you heard these words, what came to your mind in terms of energy, intention, power? What transmitted to you? to me, they were not very empowering. They were kind of mundane, kind of colloquial, obviously. They are informal. Not so attractive. This one is a personal reaction here. I prefer the Taoist terms. And I also don't prefer to use words, by the way. That's my personal sharing here. But from a spiritual perspective, they also seemed kind of diminishing in power. None of them honoring the life force and power that they have in the process of giving birth. Not even honoring the power of, because maybe you don't give birth. Some people don't give birth to children, literally, so they don't use sexuality for that purpose, but they understand its power nonetheless, and they honor it in their spiritual growth path. And there was nothing exalting in these words. So it kind of seemed sacrilegious to me. That's my personal reaction to this. I don't necessarily condone, or I don't necessarily say, wow, we should never use these words. I believe everybody can use whatever words they want to in their personal lives. It's their body, obviously. They do have the power to choose, and they will choose according to their level of consciousness, level of growth. I also feel that they will choose based on how in love they are. This one is a personal belief of mine. When we fall or rise in love, the words that we use and the energy that we bring to our body changes. Okay, we look at it in a more respectful, in a more magnetic, vibrant way, enlightening way, or uplifting somehow. Most of us, maybe not everybody. It depends on your erotic blueprints, talking about Jaya's work. It depends on your personality in the bedroom, all of that. It depends on you could be in love with somebody, but maybe the relationship is not necessarily constructive. So that emotion can, depending on who's on the other end of your emotion, let's say, it can go in a very beautiful, empowering place. It can go in a disempowering place. We've all seen this. That's why the world of therapy is so big. The words that the other person is using to us, because love and the intimate act is so vulnerable. That's why it's also so powerful. You are like, what is the word? Molten. I hope that's the word. I can't check right now. Molten metal upon which you can stamp words, and emotions can get stamped, and it's so easy to imprint on molten metal. When we use words in love, they can either lift us up, and for most people, the first impulse before things evolve in any way is to lift up. And a lot of the people that start to use different words, especially women, around their genitalia, when they are in love, it starts to change. Even if it does in smaller steps or in smaller jumps, let's say, it still grows. It still goes up in a way. So I think that's important. The word does have power. What we call our genitalia does have power. And even just when you're not in love, there is a practice in the personal growth field where you are encouraged to name your genitalia in the way that you see fit, if you see fit, basically, because it's not mandatory, to bring yourself more power and to come back to your body, to embody your genitalia more powerfully, more magnetically, more in a more honoring way. There's a beautiful life-supporting, love-supporting intention behind it, behind using words. There's no judgment. If somebody wants to use dirty words because that is what turns them on, basically, sure, fine. In the medical field, when you start to use those terms, I personally, this is my coaching perspective, I think the words that they use were really not inspired. Number one, whole is a very colloquial term. Trust me, I, as a heterosexual in the medical field, when I go for a medical checkup, nobody starts to call my genitalia with pussy. Okay? And they don't need to because they don't want to offend me or something. So the medical terms is actually vagina. I think if they wanted to not use the words vagina because some people are offended, from a medical perspective, I think two words that would have been a more inspired choice would have been orifice. Orifice is more professional. Okay? It's an orifice. In a medical setting, you would probably tolerate this better, and nobody on the outside would be so offended as they were by the words bonus hole or front hole. Another word that they could have used is sphincter, because all circular muscles are actually called sphincters. What we in mainstream society know as sphincter is just the anal opening. By the way, there are two sphincters in the anal opening. The one towards the outside is the one that we control voluntarily. The one right above it is involuntarily controlled. This one just sends signals because the colon is full, and it needs that's the first signal that you get. You have to go to the bathroom. But we have sphincters when the whole large intestine and small intestine, actually the connections between the two, they are sphincters because they open and close to push in and out contents. When the food that is taken from the stomach, the digested food, and sent into the small intestine, there's also a sphincter there that opens and closes and pushes down the content. From the esophagus, as the food goes down into our stomach, there's another sphincter there. The esophagus also is a sphincter here. We have two sphincters, one for the breathing canal and the other one for the digestive canal. Two different canals. Around the eyes, circular muscles here, they are sphincters. They contract and they dilate. So, and to what? To adjust the intake of light and visual stimuli. I don't think we understand biology so well, and this isn't common knowledge, but maybe these words would have been a much better choice than holes. Bonus hole, front hole. Yeah, and I can understand where people come from when they get offended, because when you start to use this in medical setting, there's a legal system behind it. All medical acts are intimate acts, and they are governed by certain laws. Okay, they are governed by laws. There's you got to choose consciously the words that you use. That's my opinion also. I'm not going to expect in the medical field for people to call the vagina the gate, the jade gate, or the vermilion gate, or the jade pavilion. Obviously not. I'm not going to expect in the medical field for physicians to call the woman's genitalia yoni. Obviously. I'm not going to expect them to call it hole, clam with a beard, coin holder, whatever other. I'm not going to expect them to use those words either. So I think the use and the choice of words definitely needs to be consciously looked at. And probably, since this whole thing came up in the press, I think we could be more conscious of the intention behind the words and try to use more honoring words. Sexuality, I'm not going to refer to the entire war thing that is going on in the Anglo-Saxon world. It is there, mainly, in the whole thing with some words, not just their genitalia, but also the breasts, but also woman. Those are political bombs nowadays, political Molotovs. That's where they're being turned into. Thank God I don't live in that culture. Here we don't have those issues. Honestly, it's not an issue in our culture, and it shouldn't be, because nobody wants to offend anybody with words. That should be the underlying here. When you call it bonus hole, it is condescending, honestly. So that being said, I did check out Joe's Cancer Trust, Cervical Cancer Trust page. The intention behind is really like their whole work is not intended to insult people. So I think that was just a very unfortunate way to address the current issues with the transgender, non-binary, queer community and their entire politics right now. And it's a pity because I think the intention behind this foundation is a really good one. Sadly, they entered in this particular niche of customers in a way that managed to offend others. Hopefully there will be a diplomatic way to navigate out of this, I want to believe. And hopefully, because I'm curious if you guys, or ladies especially, stuck with me till now, what do you think of the words that we're using for our genitalia? What do you think of the entire process behind them? What do you think of the various cultural references that I gave here? And those are not exhaustive. I'm sure that there are many other ways culturally and traditionally that the woman's genitalia has been named, which I'm not aware of. So clearly I'm not saying that I hold all the information here, but just with this small piece of information, what do you feel? Okay, let's look at it. How do you feel? Like what is your power, personal power related to your body and your genitalia? I would love to know that. That being said, ladies, I also have something for you. It's the Women's Practices program. Check it out. That one it's not about words so much as it is about the energy that we bring to our genitalia, the awareness of our sexual power, basically, and how we work with it to increase it, to become more and more aware of it, to expand it for ourselves. So that program, I think, is worth checking out. There's no politics around it, none of that. It's just embodiment, pure embodiment. Looking at it, there's also a program where we look at our genitalia. Check it out. And I will see you in other videos. Bye.